We trust the products in our homes every single day. Our kitchen gadgets, our cars, even our kids' toys. But what happens when that trust is broken? When the very things designed to make our lives easier become a hidden danger?
Ticking time bombs. And look, that's not me trying to be dramatic. That's a direct quote from a U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commissioner, Richard Trunka, talking about a very real and growing threat. Now, he was talking specifically about lithium-ion batteries, but really the issue is so much bigger. This isn't some far-off hypothetical problem. It's a reality that families are facing right now, with absolutely devastating consequences.
I mean, just listen to this. A house fire in California, started by an e-bike battery, tragically took 3 generations of a single family: a great-grandmother, a grandmother, and a little 6-year-old girl. It's just an unimaginable loss, and it's the very thing these safety systems are supposed to prevent.
And it's definitely not just isolated incidents. Take this number, 43. That's how many people were injured in one single fire in a New York apartment building, also caused by a lithium-ion battery. It just goes to show how widespread the impact of one faulty product can be.
So it makes you wonder, right? Who's supposed to be standing between us and these dangers? Well, let's meet the safety squad, the government agencies whose whole job is to protect us as consumers. Probably the easiest way to get your head around all the different players is to just think of them as guardians, each one protecting a different part of your home.
So let's break it down. First up, you've got the FDA and the FSIS. They handle the kitchen, all your food, drugs, and cosmetics. Then you head out to the garage, and that's the territory of the NHTSA, which covers cars, trucks, and all their parts. And for pretty much everything else, the living room, the backyard, the kids' playroom, that all falls to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC. And get this, they oversee more than 15,000 different kinds of products.
So, when one of these guardians finds a product that's dangerous, what happens next? Well, there's a specific playbook they're supposed to follow.
Okay, so a product recall is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a formal process to get a defective or unsafe product out of your hands and off the store shelves. The whole point is to remove the danger from the marketplace.
Now, here's a really key distinction. Most of the recalls you hear about are voluntary. That's where the company itself initiates it, often with a little nudge from a government agency. But, and this is a huge but, those agencies have a trump card. They can issue a mandatory recall if a company refuses to act and there's a serious risk to people. It's their ultimate safety lever.
The process itself is actually pretty structured. First, you gotta identify the issue. Then, the company has to come up with a corrective action plan. That means they stop selling the product and they have to get in touch with customers. After that, they have to offer a fix, a repair, a replacement, or a refund. And finally, the agency keeps an eye on the whole thing to make sure it's actually working.
That playbook sounds straightforward enough, right? But in reality, the fight for safety can get incredibly complicated. It gets tangled up in politics and arguments over rules, which we can see by taking a peek inside a recent CPSC meeting.
So let's go right back to those ticking time bombs. The CPSC was meeting to vote on a brand new, mandatory safety rule for those e-bike and scooter batteries. And let's just say things got a little heated.
So on one side, you had the acting chairman, Alexander Feldman, and his argument was all about procedure. He was basically saying, whoa, slow down. If we rush this and don't follow every single step perfectly, the whole rule could get challenged in court and get delayed for even longer, or even thrown out completely. But on the other side, Commissioner Mary Hona-Surik made this really urgent plea. She argued that the CPSC is an independent agency for a reason, and that waiting around because of procedural red tape while people are literally dying, well, that's just not acceptable. Her point was simple. We've waited long enough.
And here's the number that shows you just how urgent her point was. Less than 11%. That's how many e-bikes were actually following the existing voluntary safety standards. It was clear the industry just wasn't policing itself, which is why so many people were saying a mandatory rule was the only way forward.
So what happened in the end? Well, the vote was razor thin. It passed 3-2. They're moving forward with the mandatory rule, but that close vote just highlights the deep divisions even among the people who are supposed to be protecting us. Now, all this talk about agencies and debates and rules, it can feel really distant, right? But you actually have a super important role to play in all of this. So what can you do?
Okay, first, be proactive. You can always check for recalls on any product at recalls.gov.
Second, if you come across a product you think is unsafe, report it. You can do that at saferproducts.gov. Also, when you buy a new appliance, take that extra minute to register it. That way, the company can reach you directly if there's a problem. And finally, just do a little research before you buy.
So, we have these agencies, these guardians of our homes, and this playbook designed to keep us safe. But, as we've seen, it's a system that's under a lot of pressure, constantly pulled between following procedure and the urgent need to act fast, which really leaves us with one big question. The system is there to protect you, but is it enough?